What's up, guys? Back with another episode of the Peace, Love, and Meat podcast. Today, Ross and I are joined by a very special guest, and I would like to call a fast friend, Mr. Jim Eeckhout. He is really just kind of coming into my spectrum within the last year or two on the traditional side of archery. And as we've been doing some bow giveaways and whatnot, we've exchanged some messages. We got to meet at the Kalamazoo expo up there, and then just kind of like I said, our budding friendship has evolved into this podcast where he was probably the driving force behind an answer to the question of, can you help us with a bow? And Jim was instrumental in talking to Three Rivers Archery, who works with Bear and the Lost Bow campaign as the focus here. He was able to put together an amazing, beautiful 90th anniversary Bear Grizzly to give away in this bow package. But with that, we've got some other things that we're going to announce today too, how you get entered. And really the most important thing behind all of this is, I don't want people to just see this as another bow giveaway. I don't want people to just see this as, something that's a passive thing. It's like, this project means a great deal to Jim, and like with a passion, just even the last few minutes of hearing you talk about it and the excitement about things that are coming. The Lost Bow campaign, just from my dumbed down version, and we'll delve into it, is the idea to keep the tradition, no pun intended, of traditional archery alive by putting bows into the hands of our youth and excited to be into new archery as adults, making sure that these people have a path to archery through the traditional bow. And that was really pushed by the Michigan Traditional Bow Hunters. And Mr. Jim here was the president of that, and he's no longer. But the fact of the matter is, for the last 4 years, the Lost Bow campaign has been putting bows into the hand of traditional archers, whether that's youth, a few adults, and they were awesome to join together with us so we can create this giveaway, this raffle, to really drive some awareness first and foremost. But secondly, we need to get some donations driven there so we can help get more bows in hands. So from that standpoint and that jump off, first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for the help getting this organized. And lastly, tell us a little bit about what the Lost Bow campaign is to you.
Well, all right, I'll give you a little background on that Lost Bow campaign. So, it started almost 4 years ago, and what it was we had an anonymous donor come forward through to Michigan Traditional Bow Hunters, and he wanted to start this program called the Lost Bow campaign. And what it was is we would get bows into the hands of youth that were they showed an interest in traditional archery. Okay, that may not have the funding or the I don't know, like a mentor or whatever,
Right.
or someone in their family that maybe isn't into it, but they showed an interest. So through those donations, or his initial donation, we started putting bows. So you would say you're out shooting your bow, and the neighbor kid comes down the road and shows an interest in it a few times. You would nominate this
Okay.
through the Lost Bow campaign. So Tracy Bolowski from St. Joe River Bows was very instrumental in this too, and they contribute heavily to this as well. So she was the one that kind of kicked it all off and introduced it to us. So anyhow, you would nominate a kid, and we would get them a bow. Three Rivers Archery jumped on board right away, and they get them arrows, and then Selway's in there for quivers. Then other voyeurs and manufacturers of quivers, Great Northern, everyone's kind of like the whole traditional archery community, bear archery, everyone is rallied around this, and other organizations to contribute money and funding for this. And it's really starting to just grow. We're getting bows into a lot of kids' hands. I made a motion last year at our board meeting to let's put it into some adults that may need the same mentoring and don't have the funding or that. And because we do get donations of bows that are like in an adult weight that could use. So that's what we've even done that. We gave a bow last year to a disabled veteran in Maine that drew a moose tag, and he wanted to do it with a traditional bow. So we ran with it. We gave him an adult bow, and set them all up before the hunt. So that's kind of the background of the whole deal. And we're just constantly nominating children or adults, and but the main focus has always been the youth and try to get the kids into traditional archery.
Well, that's one of the things that I find so interesting, and really kind of averse to everything else in the world where everything is going further and further from the way things were, one of the beautiful aspects that I found with traditional archery is the reverence for it, the reverence for the tradition and the honoring of great hunters from years past, more so than, and this is not an insult, it's just the way the world is, in the more conventional compound side industry of things. It's like it's a flavor of the month. I mean, you have your long-standing big names, but like you can come out of nowhere in a matter of months just with content and the right media and this kind of thing. The traditional side of things, you really had to kind of like had some brass tacks worth to become a legend, because there are so many legends. Do you think that this is bigger than just the bow? And I'm not trying to make it more than it is, but like for you as a personal mission and the richness that the traditional bow and traditional hunting and those relationships have created for you, are you hoping to pass that as a legacy on as well? Because that's something that I would like to impart upon somebody that might get involved in this giveaway, is you're kind of writing your own story as you go with a mechanism that can be handed down. You know what I mean? Like this tradition, this honoring the animals and honoring the hunt and learning this way is a little bit counter to so many other things in modern life today. Is there a drive for that, or is it just the aspect of archery, or is it the total package?
I'd say it's a total package. I mean, I look back, I was pretty fortunate the way I grew up. I grew up on a farm, and my dad was a traditional bow hunter. And I shot a traditional bow my whole entire life. That's just what I've done. But I just think that being a traditional bow hunter, shooting a traditional bow, and I know, I think a while back, Brandon, you made reference to this. It's almost like a martial art type thing,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a constant work in progress. But when you hunt that way and you shoot that bow and you learn woodsmanship skills, and it's a constant, like, I guess, work in progress. You take those skills into other aspects of your life every day, and I think that you just have you're more grounded. I guess it's not
Yeah.
like everything is handed to me. You're working for something.
Mhm.
And I think that, like I say, me personally, I know, and my friends that are that way, that they've taken this into their personal lives outside of
Yeah.
the archery realm.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's rooted back into hunting and traditional archery. So I think that's why I like pass along, because, and then when you give I gave, through a weird coincidence, there was a kid in town that switched to shooting traditional archery. When I say kid, he's like 26, 27 years old, whatever he is.
Yeah.
And I accidentally got his Michigan traditional bow hunter shipped into my house by mistake. So I
Yeah.
called him, I sent him a message and say, Tim, I got your magazine. And he didn't answer for a couple of days. And I said, Tim, I got your magazine. I can just bring it into town and drop it off.
Yeah.
He was like, I thought I was getting punked, because why would you be getting a hold of me? But so anyway, I went there, and he's got his son's there, and his son's wanting a bow, So right away, I just nominated him, and Dave and Tracy from St. Joe River Bows jumped on board and hooked me up with a great bow and free rivers and everything for the kid. And I went back into town like here a couple months ago, and nice sunny day, gave that kid, but he was ready. Right there, you just see the joy in that kid's eyes with that bow, and he started shooting it. And his dad sent me a text a couple of days later. He's like, that kid won't put that bow down.
Yeah.
And he said he comes home, does all his homework from school, and he knows the deal. If he doesn't do good in school, he doesn't get to shoot his bow, and he's just excelling. And then he's out every night. He just wants to shoot the bow. I'm like, well, there we go. Look what we accomplished.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, we had my son is going to be 5 in June, and this last fall we started going weekly during the winter months. The shop that's here in town has a weekly trad only indoor 3D league, and it's like a real family oriented deal. There's several kids that come and shoot their little bows and stuff, and he really wanted to start coming, and so he came with me after like the second week when I found out that, like, yeah, kids can come. And he has a nice little bow that the shop owner has, like, kind of was just letting him use because we didn't have one his size yet. That was like a real one. He's got a bunch of little plastic toy ones that shoot the suction cup arrows, but he didn't have like a real one yet. But the shop owner, Danny, had one, and so he lets him use it every week. And he loves it so much, and he's always wanting to come out in the backyard and shoot at my targets, and like always wants to go back into the range and stuff. And so it really is one of those things where there's such an immediate sense of satisfaction, which seems funny to say because it's like such a difficult skill to be satisfied with because it can be so frustrating. But like when you see you like it's so user dependent, not necessarily technology dependent, right? And so like a 5-year-old can pull a string back and fling an arrow and hit a target, and he's like, I did that, that's the coolest thing ever. And he's like, from that moment he's hooked. So it's such a cool thing to watch when it's that young too.
Yeah, I think it shows them that they did something and accomplished something. Like you said, not technology driven. So that's why I say as you get older, and if you continue to do that, you take those aspects on other parts of your life. You can do stuff if you put your mind to it.
Yeah.
Don't let everything be so technical. I mean, we just gave another kid that I met at the professional bow hunters banquet, him and his dad, the kid walked by with a Fred Bear shirt on. I tapped him on the shoulder. He's, yes, sir. I said, Fred Bear? He's like, yeah. He starts telling me stories about Fred Bear and everything. I got his name and everything. They lived in Virginia, and we sent him a bow too, and his dad's the same deal. He's messing me. He goes, the kid won't put it down. He just loves it, So that's what it's about, It's great stuff,
Yeah, and I mean, and truly, just so everybody is kind of aware of how this is going to operate, we talked about this a little bit before, and just to speak to the integrity and the clarity of how we're doing this, one, to remove any confusion, any whatever. I mean, I see so many things that I'm questionable of on the internet these days. I just want to make clear, Ross and I will take no money on this part whatsoever. Everything is going to go straight through the Michigan Traditional Bow Hunters website, where you can go to the Lost Bow campaign and donate directly there. The way that we're going to separate this out is on the donation side. I've got a custom knife coming from a friend of mine, and it's a knife that's very special to me. It's a knife that really got me into collecting knives and thinking about them differently than, going and getting a nice knife at, say, Smoky Mountain Knife Works. For me, it became like, no, I want to know the artist. I want to know the other side of this craft. And for me to be able to share that for him, also to just pay that forward to you guys and hopefully drive some donation there. We have 3 ranges that we're going to look at here. So I'll speak to the knife first. Any donation over $5 is going to be eligible for the knife. We're going to have an Africa hunt that we're going to detail out. It's going to be $50 donation, but the $50 donation will also qualify you down for the knife as well. But what's going to happen there is it'll just be 2 separate randomized drawing. The likelihood of that will be almost impossible to replicate. So somebody will likely win. There'll be 1 winner for each, but we just want to make clear that the possibility is through a randomizer, 1 person could win both. So a $5 to $49 donation will make you eligible for the knife. $50 or more will make you eligible for the Africa Hunt giveaway. I have personally hunted at this place, Buck Africa. It is a phenomenal place. The animals are incredible. They have a serious dedication to the land, to the people that live on the land and work it, as well as they have a conservation area. So it's a very neat place for a lot of reasons. It's a very personal place for a lot of reasons, but $50 will get you entered to the raffle to win that Africa Hunt. And I can tell you, it's a once in a lifetime experience, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful place. There's so many things to do outside of that area within a few hours drive. Like you have Kruger National Park, you can get down to Johannesburg. I mean, it's an epic place to go hunt, but it's also an epic place to explore beyond. That's a pretty exciting thing for us to be able to share. And like I said, didn't really know how that was going to come together. Ross and I had even talked about yesterday, potentially pushing that to its own thing, just trying to understand the magnitude of how awesome of a package that is. But the owner, Peter, was pretty adamant that he wanted to support the campaign, the Lost Bow campaign. So anybody that gets involved in this donation process, you have a low limit donation for the knife, $50 or more for the hunt. There's a free option. You can come to the Peace, Love, and Meat page. You can follow Michigan Traditional Bow Hunters. You can tag Lost Bow Campaign, and you can tag 3 of your friends, and you're entered to win the bow giveaway.
And 3 is the minimum. You can tag as many people as you want in the comments.
As you want in the comments. But we're just trying to drive awareness, because awareness and sharing means more awareness. We're trying to drive donation, and we really just want you guys on the receiving end of those things to enjoy traditional archery or a knife in the way that I have or a hunt in Africa the way that I have. It's just the ability to pay experiences that I have felt and loved forward. So hopefully this is a personal one to me. I care about everybody that's involved in this, all the people that are making this possible. And I care about the people who are giving, Peter in Africa from the Buck Africa. And then my buddy, I just want to confirm exactly all the details on the knife before I say his name. But, everybody that has supported this, I am grateful to, because I couldn't do this without you. And that includes you, Jim. So thank you very much for making that possible and helping us do
appreciate
this.
what you guys have done to put this together too. I mean, what an opportunity, and wow, that's amazing. I really want to thank you for that.
Well, no problem. We just want to do it justice.
And one final note on the donation side of things, because like Jim mentioned, they get donations, all the time that aren't related to the thing that we're going to be doing. And so when you go on to, and we'll link the website and everything in the posts and all the stuff that we do, but when you actually go to make the donation to Lost Bow Campaign, there will be a section, like a box where you can leave a note, or it says like special instructions or something like that. If you just put PLM or Peace, Love, and Meat, that way on their end, they know that your donation is your entry for our giveaway. That way they can separate the donations that come through for our giveaway versus the ones that are just the random people that donate to them anyways, that are more tied to their organization. So that's how you will make sure that your stuff goes into the entry thing to make it easier to separate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so going forward, then it'll start on today's date, correct?
Today's date,
midnight on May 2nd.
May 2nd, midnight, drawing on May 3rd, Friday.
So then you just go to the mitribo.com. You'll click on the Lost Bow Campaign, and you'll make your donation, and you'll leave in the comments what this is for, and list you guys, and then we'll keep track of those names for the next 2 weeks. So now we'll do the drawing.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And just to detail the hunt, I don't know the package exactly detailed, as we've just kind of briefly messaged, but I'm assuming it's the same package I went on, which was an Impala, blue wildebeest, and a warthog. And, I went with a traditional bow, somewhat limiting on your capability from yardage, but I will tell you, there was every kind of animal that you could have ever wanted to dream of hunting that we saw. We saw giraffes, we saw Cape buffalo, we saw baboons, we saw impala. I think it was what is the red? We saw it's the red. What are they? Anyhow, yeah, there you go, the red hartebeest. So, I mean, just saw so many animals, and they are all available to hunt. So when you get there, if there's an animal that catches your interest, you have an ability to go beyond the structured hunt that we're giving away. And there, I can promise you, from a conservation standpoint, specifically to this place, I promise you will see where all of your money goes if you did spend extra, because they are driven by conservation. But one other thing I got to add, just as a caveat, you will have to get yourself there on airline. That's the only thing that we haven't covered. And, I wish we could, but getting the hunt in and of itself, that's all taken care of. You'll fly into the airport. They'll transport you to Limpopo. You'll hunt. It'll be amazing. You'll have some of the best food, the best time, the best laughs that you could ever imagine. You just have to get yourself there. So I'll detail a little bit more closely with Peter, and we'll kind of figure that out, just so I can detail exactly every single thing that they'll get to experience. But from my own experience there, I mean, I intend to go back as much as I can, if I can. It's just that kind of place, and some very, very special moments there. So, but back to the Lost Bow Campaign. I mean, for you guys, the number one thing is getting more eyes on this, more reach on this. But if somebody had a bow, is that a feasible donation as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We get bows donated all the time. Like, and the other thing that we do at the Lost Bow too is, like, so if like I mentioned, those couple of kids we gave the bows to, eventually they're going to outgrow those bows. So we ask them to pay it forward. If they don't know anyone that they can pay it forward, give that bow and set up to, but they can just return it back to us, and we'll get it into another person's hands. So, but we do get to your point. People will donate bows to us that are an adult weight. They just, a kid could use it. So then that's what we've been doing, getting those into adults' hands as well.
Nice.
So,
So how did you get into bow hunting, and how long have you been traditional bow hunting? I mean, you've exclusively traditional bow hunting, correct?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just, like I mentioned earlier, I just, my dad was a bow hunter and his friends, and they always shot, traditional archery. So I just picked it up as a small kid, and just, always, I guess we were fortunate. Like I said, I grew up on a farm, and where I lived, we have, if you look at an area photograph, we have one of the largest woods in the county behind us. Like it runs for almost 2.5 miles one direction. So to have that right out behind our farm, I could just kind of go. That was
Yeah.
back in the day before everybody owned all the deer. They were there. But anyway, and no one cared. And you were just bow hunting, and no one really. And I could just go farm to farm, and everybody was good with it. So
Yeah.
and I would, and that was just my thing. I just loved carrying the bow and just hunt whatever. And then the other thing was, bear archery was right here in Michigan. So we would stop by there, and I could go to the factory and, see the videos and the bows, and got my first hunting bow there when I was 12, going to be 12. And so that was kind of cool. And you mentioned like earlier about having books and stuff, and I've got a bookshelf here with a couple, probably maybe 500 or 600 books. I just love reading. And so I read all these adventures that all Fred Bear's Field Notes and stuff like that. Russell Annabelle Adventures in Alaska, and I see the Fred Bear movies and stuff. So all that kind of was a driving force for me to do these adventure hunts and stuff, and it just kept growing and growing, and I just like that type of deal,
Yeah.
So,
I think, I was having a conversation. Maybe Ross and I had this. I know Logan Hanks and I had it one time, but talking about the lack of unified heroes in America anymore. Kind of when I grew up, I'm reflecting on some of my dad's childhood that, obviously infiltrated my life, but, Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, some of these sports players, or you had, Schwarzenegger and Stallone and all these things in the 80s. A lot of the cool things that I found about traditional archery as I've delved into it, like even from Fred Bear's Field Notes, there's a lot of great stories out there about these people to be idolized as heroes. And I think, from the adventure standpoint of the way that they live their lives, the way that they hunted, the things that they hunted, for a society that I feel like is truly lacking strong, real heroes, not superheroes, but actual real people that have done things. That's one of the coolest sides of traditional archery to me, is the storytelling and the books that are written about it and whatnot. You've had some pretty amazing adventures over the years. You've been to Alaska numerous times. You've killed a variety. I mean, if people could see this on YouTube, you have a pretty incredible wall sitting there behind you.
That's about a quarter of it from once he adjusted the camera before.
But do you think that that's something that... Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. Just make sure we get it
awesome.
all. Just rub it in.
Yeah.
Damn.
So good. Full 360 view of the room.
And even, I don't know if
that's great.
There. I don't know if I can even get all that up there.
Every corner of the wall.
Anyway, that's part of it.
So, that's part of it.
I've been very, very fortunate to do all these adventures that I've done.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I'll ask you a simple question first. Maybe it's not simple, but easy, fast answer is, what is your favorite species or most challenging species?
I mean, I hate to say it, I love hunting white-tailed deer.
I'm the same.
Dude, you whitetail guys, man. Every time you guys get that question, it always comes back to the whitetail. I love it.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love hunting in Alaska, and obviously I do go all the time. And I love hunting all the animals up there. I love, caribou hunting, moose hunting, bear hunting, all that. But I love turkey hunting too.
Yeah.
I mean, I love turkey hunting. It's a challenge, you're calling them in and everything. And you can learn so much turkey hunting.
Yeah.
About woodsmanship and stuff. And then I take that, like a lot of times I'll be running and gunning, say, for turkeys, trying to figure it out.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden I'll look, wow, this is a good place to hang a tree stand.
Yep.
Because the deer are using this area.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff like that. So, but I mean, I like hunting everything, but it came down to I just love hunting whitetails.
That's what I told Ross. I heard a guy, and I've stolen this quote quite heavily, but he shared with me one time. He said, you know what? He said, I love Western hunting because I'm in pursuit and I always feel like I'm in the game. He was like, what I love about whitetail hunting is he was like, when you learn an area, when you start to track these things and you pick the right tree and that buck walks out, the one that you want, the one that you've kind of dreamed about, he's like, that's the magic of God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just a totally different experience when it's the right buck.
Yeah.
And it's no discredit to the Western style. The spot and stalk stuff is amazing too. It's just its own thing, and it's nature's offering, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and again, now I absolutely love hunting out west and pursuing all that stuff. But I mean, we live on wild game meat.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate to where I live. I mean, I walk out my door, I have whitetails right here, and I have multiple opportunities, multiple tags a year. And and just every time you think you got it figured out, you don't.
Yeah.
You're always second guessing it. And I guess the other thing, I was talking to my buddy actually that lives in Idaho, and he talked about string time, and I didn't really think about that. And he's like, when I'm hunting in Idaho, I'm lucky to draw my bow once or twice a season.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he goes, how often I go, well, I can shoot like multiple deer.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I never looked at it. Even I was in Utah one time, and we were at this awards banquet dinner thing, and at the table of the people asked where I was from, Michigan, and there was a kid there. He's probably like 16 or 17. And he said something to his dad. He goes, I don't know. You ask him. And I said, why? He goes, have you ever killed a white-tailed deer? And I kind of laughed. I go, yeah. I go, are you kidding me or what? He goes, no, I'm being very serious. I go, yeah, maybe like hundreds of them.
Yeah.
I was like, no way. I go, why? He goes, that's my dream hunt, to go on a white-tailed deer hunt. I'm like, what? And I never thought about it because just where I live, and I'm so fortunate for that. But I can still remember the first time I was bow hunting when I was 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
My dad and his buddies, and we're up, go up north, the typical Michigan thing. And in the morning we get to dinner, like, they don't even care about me. My dad goes, yeah, if you follow this 2-track, there's a swamp on one side and hardwoods on the other. Yeah, this is pitch black, and they dumped me. And I went out hunting, and I waited till I got a light, went in the swamp, and a little after daylight here came a buck, and it was crazy. Belief it completely blew the shot, but I still remember that like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And I got just as excited shooting a buck this year with my bow as I did then.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It's just something about white-tailed deer. And I guess I couldn't hunt them. It would, I do love bear hunting too.
Yeah.
Especially in Southeast Alaska, spot and stalk.
Mm.
Where you could sneak right up on them.
Yeah. Well, I got to see that video of you in the river, and that bear up on the ridge.
Yeah.
That was a pretty sweet video. You guys had submitted that for something, correct?
It was for Film Fest through KUU at the time, and traditional archery thing. Yeah. And
but
then
that was just like
since, and I shot another one there. That one there was probably, I think I shot that one at 3 yards.
Yeah.
The one I shot a couple years ago, I shot him at about 10 yards. And I just drew another tag, so I'll be going back next spring. I've never hunted in the spring, but that'll be a little bit different.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, so but that's another. I mean, I love even hunting them over bait or that. I just like bear hunting as well, and I'm fortunate to be able to do that a lot.
Yeah,
because my parents sold the farm and moved to the UP 20 some years ago, and I used to be able to draw that late season. It's a lottery in Michigan for bear tags, and I could draw that late tag pretty much almost every year. So again, my parents lived there. I had that opportunity to just walk right out the door and bear hunt, and I shot a lot of bears in Ontario. So, yeah.
You're diminishing your legend here, man. I thought you were a guy that just went out there and spot and stalked everything, You just had the rough road to hoe every day.
No, I mean...
No, I'm just giving you shit about it, but
no,
I mean, truly.
I'm not gonna lie. I mean,
yeah.
I got deer everywhere around the house, right in the house.
Do you have a favorite whitetail story? Like your favorite deer?
Man, there's so many. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story that happened. This happened like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. I got up into a tree stand on the farm I hunted across the road from me. And it was a little bit of a breezy day. And I'm hunting along the stream edge. It's divided by 2 fields, so there's brush growing along the stream, and I'm in a giant oak tree. and it's kind of like a pie-shaped piece in front of me, a thicket of like CRP. And I know the bucks like to bed in there in the doe. So I climbed up into the stand, and there's a lot of little songbirds that go up and down this ditch. So I'm always catching that little bit of flickering movement.
Yeah.
And I kept looking, and I'm like, what is it? And then all of a sudden I'm looking, and I'm like, wait a minute. I get my binoculars on my pack, and I look, and like 20 yards from me, there's a buck bedded. And he's right on that ditch on the other side of the stream. And what I'm seeing is it was either his ear flick or he'd move, and I'd see his rack. And I'm like, well, that's a nice buck. So I got my grunt call out, and I'm trying to grunt. He would just kind of like flick his ear, and I wouldn't move. And I said, well, this is crazy. And the wind was blowing. It was kind of a breezy day. I said, well, I just walked into this stand quietly, and he never got out of his bed. So I can get back down, and I'll just have to walk through the water, come up the bank on the other side. And if I do this right, he'll be bedded like 12, 15 yards in front of me. I know in my mind it's probably not going to work because it's a white-tailed deer and how they're wired. So I got down, I crossed the stream, and I come up that bank, and I turn, and he is bedded, looking the opposite direction. And I'm like, I can't believe this. And he's like 12 yards from me. So I got my bow, and I don't know what I was thinking. I go, wow, I should pull my phone out, take a picture of him before I try to shoot him. And I don't know if you guys know this, but this is my phone.
Yeah. Flip phone.
I'm not an iPhone guy. So I take my phone out, and I'm just getting ready to snap the picture, and I feel the wind swirl, and his head whips around, and he looks at me and sees I'm standing there. I just throw the phone in my pocket. He jumps up, and he takes like a leap through it's like I don't know if you want to call it. There's all briars, rose bushes, and everything. And he kind of gets hung up in that disoriented. He jumps in the field. He stops broadside to look at me at like 15 yards. Like he's completely caught off guard.
Yeah.
And I just shot him right there. And I got him pretty close to both shoulders taken out. He just went down and started nose diving through the beans and spun around and went right back into that same stream and crossed and tried to go up the other side. And he fell over. And I was like, what in the heck just happened, So to me, that was kind of a cool experience, And then when I got him up to the house here, and he was a big buck. When I skinned him out the next day, he was all gored up and bruised up.
Yeah.
And you could see where a tine from another buck had punctured his neck even. Pretty good. So I think that because it was the beginning of November, they were rutting at the time, and they probably got a really bad fight.
Yeah.
He just kind of wore out, was bedded there,
Yeah. Well, that's that kind of situation in totality. It just makes me feel like that reminds me of some of the best whitetail hunting that I've had. Where something that shouldn't go right comes into your favor, and it's like in the midst of something going right, there's 12 things that go wrong, but that's where you lose it. It's like something's going right, and then everything goes wrong, or it's like stuff starting to fall apart, and then it comes back together again. I've had a few whitetail hunts where it was like, okay, I was never known, I was never seen, I was never thought of. Great, easy, efficient shot, kill. Other times it's been like I'm just holding on by the seat of my pants, hoping I can hold this thing together and get a shot at this thing. But that to me, I know that's on every hunt, that's in every situation. But for some reason, as sketched out as whitetails are, it just seems like a broader challenge to get it all right. You know what I mean?
Yep. And it is. And they're just wired differently. And this is me personally, it's kind of an issue when I go to Alaska. I always got to keep my mind in check because I'm like, okay, this moose or this caribou is not a whitetail. He's not going to bolt at the slightest little movement.
Yeah.
They're just like a moose is methodical with every movement it does, or a caribou. Or even bears. Bears will bolt. Bears are quick, but there's still that little bit of hesitation. With the whitetail, there is never a hesitation.
No.
It is so rare for that to happen because they're just wired differently, especially in high pressure areas. But even like we're overrun with deer. But for me to pick out a big giant doe and shoot her, I just get all wound up with that too. And
Yeah.
just like it was a good buck, you
Yeah.
know. And,
Well,
and I've said this before, and it happened to me this year. I passed up bucks, and then a week later, I'll kill that deer because I'm hunting in a different part of the farm. It was a different scenario, and just how it came together,
mhm.
it felt different. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense.
You
One,
know, and I just like, and I look at, I don't care about the rack personally.
yeah,
Do I want to shoot big deer? Absolutely, just like everybody else. But I kind of really try to gauge the deer now, look at their body size too,
yeah.
and try to shoot the mature ones. Like I shot a buck this year, was only 6 point, but his body was absolutely huge.
Is that the one that was by the red leaves?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what it was crazy. My buddy called me and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I says, "I'm sitting in a tree." He goes, "I go, where are you?" He goes, "Of course you are. Everyone else in the world is eating lunch right now. In the middle of the day, you're sitting in a tree." I go, "Well, it's a nice day." I said, "They're gonna move." I
Yeah.
said, "There's a storm coming in. They're gonna move." And he's laughing. And I kind of hung up the phone, put it in my pocket, and I looked down and I caught movement. Here comes that buck. And he started eating acorns right under, in fact, the same tree that I was talking about where I shot that one on the ground. And I looked at how big his body was, and I said, and I shot him. I called him, like, I go, got my buddy back, and it wasn't, the time lapse wasn't 4 minutes.
Yeah.
I called back. I said, "Hey, guess what?" He was like, "What?" I go, "I just shot a buck." He goes, "Get out of here." I said, "Yeah, just now." He goes, "It's like 1 o'clock." I go, "Yeah, exactly." But so it's just how it came about. I knew it was a big body deer, and to me, that's just cool stuff, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's so my friend, he was pretty prevalent on this page a few years ago before he passed away, but his name was Terrence. And he just kind of had an ongoing, running storyline joke about bees and whatnot, like honeybees. And so I'm sitting there in a deer stand. It's Halloween, and I've got one of those screw-in drink holders, the little mesh nets that hang off the screw. I'm sitting in the tree stand. I've got a water bottle over there, and I'm sitting there just watching. And all of a sudden, this bee. And now, keep in mind, this is like Halloween. I don't know about you guys, but I don't typically see a lot of bees at that time. I'm not saying they're impossible, but it's a little late, it seemed like. Well, this bee lands on the top of the lid. So I'm sitting there, and like almost instantly, within a couple of seconds, I hear a big crash behind me. And I watch this buck chasing a doe down into a little ravine, like an oak grove down in the bottom and between these two rolling hills. And this is all over my shoulder, maybe 100, 150 yards away. Then again, I hear a crash. They're coming this way, and the doe runs out in the field to about 300 yards in front of me, and he's chasing behind her, tongue wagging, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
So I look at him. He's an 8-point, and he's one of those deer that when you see him from behind, you grab your bow, and then when you kind of see him from different angles, you're like, okay, I'm going to put the bow down for a second. But nevertheless, he was an 8-point. He was out in the field. Well, I watch him breed a second doe that I hadn't seen before. He goes over and breeds her immediately in the field, and then runs back over to the other doe and tries to get on her, fights another buck, loses a tine, and then walks to 11 yards and stops almost dead center broadside. And it's like, that's from the bee that kind of reminded me of my friend. Literally, who had just passed away a few days before.
Yep.
And then all of that to occur, like just unreal chaos. And then to have the deer just come to 11 yards, look at me in the stand, and never move as I drew or shot. That was just one of the coolest moments of my deer hunting life for whitetails.
Yep.
That's why I want to get Ross on a whitetail hunt so bad.
Yeah.
We'll make it happen one of these days.
So do you have any animals that you're really in particular, like you really want to get another hunt on them or a first hunt on one? Is there anything you haven't hunted that you want to?
Well, obviously, yeah, I want to hunt everything.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd like to go on another grizzly or brown bear hunt. I'd like to do that. And mountain goats. I killed a mountain goat in Utah a few years ago.
Is that the one behind you there?
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. So anyway, if I could hunt mountain goats again, yeah, but that was a deal that you got to draw the tag.
Yeah.
Once a lifetime in Utah, so I'd have to draw another out-of-state tag. Because Alaska, you got to have a guide. I'm not doing that. So
yeah,
mountain goats for sheep hunting, any of that. If I ever draw any of those tags, that kind of stuff, I like that. Mountain goats are just cool where they live.
Oh yeah. Well, the
It's
sheep
just
stuff is just about for most average blue collar Americans is just about gone to the raffles at the shows. Really, I mean, they're so damn
yeah,
expensive anymore.
yeah, it's ridiculous. I remember when I went on my sheep hunt, the outfitter just kind of like when he met me, he's like, kind of looked at me funny, and I go, what? He goes, we normally don't get young people sheep hunting.
Yeah, right.
Oh, and this, and I said, well, but to be honest with you, I got it on a cancellation.
Yeah,
I mean, on my dull sheep hunt was $5,000. So it was just
yeah,
like I couldn't pass it up.
right, for sure.
Yeah, and it was just one of those deals. I fell into it.
Yeah,
And
well,
I had the money at the time, but I mean, door to door, everything. I didn't have that much into it.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity I wasn't passing up.
I just saw my buddy and I shared it in my story. He runs a Kokanee guide service up there. He had a grizzly bear. I mean, it was, it's last minute preparations because I think it's next week. But he had a grizzly bear hunt on a cancellation that was $12,000. And anybody who's wanting a grizzly bear, that's just a phenomenal deal in this day and
Right.
age.
Yeah.
The
And
things
that's
have gotten
the same deal.
so
That's how I got my grizzly hunt. Same deal on a cancellation.
yeah. I mean,
And
it's good to stay in touch with those people and those services because I mean, people come and go all the time. I told you I had a cancellation up in Alaska last year. Had a couple guys. Just it was 2023 was a rough financial year for a lot of guys, and both guys were like, "Hey, look, if I'm honest here, just not smart for me to do for my family, And they kind of fell apart, but it's always cool to kind of stay into that vibe. But you've got another tag coming up in Alaska in the spring for the bear. What are you hunting this fall?
right now, I have 2 hunts that are planned for sure this fall, unless I draw any tags. And that's it's tag season right now. I'm putting in for tags everywhere out west. But
Yeah.
but for sure, I'm going to be gone to Alaska for most of the month of September. Moose hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And then in December, I'm going to Mexico. And I'm just the Mexico deal is we're going to be mostly just heavily on predator hunting.
Yeah.
But we can shoot whitetails and if we want as well.
Yeah.
And this is just going to be like a friend get together type deal.
Yeah.
It's kind of a relaxing style hunt.
Yeah.
So nothing hardcore unless it presents itself. So
Right.
but that's the only thing that I've etched in stone. Right now, unless I draw something, obviously I'll be hunting whitetails. But if I draw any tags, which a couple I've got max points on, but I just put in for it actually this morning from Maine for my moose tag. This is 36 years I've been putting in for a tag.
Jeez.
36 years for a tag, and I still haven't drawn.
Have you ever hunted Newfoundland?
No, I've hunted moose in Vermont and New Hampshire. I've drawn tags both those states.
Okay.
Killed bulls in both those states, but I just can't get that Maine tag for nothing. I don't know why. I just cannot get that tag. So I'm at max points, but apparently doesn't mean anything.
Sounds like you're trying to hunt out here. I got a buddy because there's no points in Idaho for any of that stuff.
Right.
I had my best friend's dad is before he passed away last year, put in for moose every single year for like 29 or 30 years or something like that, and never drew it because you have to you don't get the points. And when you do one of those, it's either moose or goat or sheep in Idaho is considered like one of the super tags or whatever. You put in for one, you can't even put in for anything else that year. So I mean, you can still do the over the counter stuff, but you can't put in for any draw hunts if you put in for one of those in the same year.
I didn't know that.
And so he would always just put in for the moose hunt because he's like, I can over the counter elk, I can over the counter mule deer and bear and all that stuff anyways. But he's like, I always want to do that, and it never happened because there's no draw odds. It's terrible chances, so you have the same terrible chances every single year.
So there's no preference point.
None.
It's just a random draw.
It's one of the only Western states I think that doesn't do that, and it's interesting because it's also probably one of the. And I think the last couple of years things have gone up a little bit, but I still think it's probably one of the cheaper Western states for most game animals anyways, even including the license itself or whatever, compared to Montana or Colorado or Utah or Wyoming even. It's one of the more affordable, but then you have, it's like, yeah, it's cheaper, but you probably won't get a tag if you're a non-resident, so that's probably why, I guess.
Yeah. I know Alaska's the same way. There's no preference point.
Yeah.
So the only stipulation I know of in Alaska, and I don't know if it's just for Prince of Wales Island or not, but like if you draw a bear tag, you can't put in for that same tag the following year. On
Oh,
Prince of
okay.
Wales. You have to skip a year.
Sure.
There's no preference point, but I drew. I've put in for Prince of Wales 3 times now. 2 fall hunts and 1 spring. I've drawn all 3 times,
Wow.
and I've put in for other hunts throughout the state, and one of them being muskox. And on my 3rd try for muskox, I drew it.
Nice.
So, but there's no, like I say, it's just a random draw.
Yeah.
So you could draw that every year, and I didn't draw it this year, but
So,
I wish I would. I still put it. And to your question earlier too, Brandon, I really want to go back and if I can ever draw the tag again, hunt muskox again.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a hard tag to draw, and I talked about this hunt on other podcasts. My hunt kind of got screwed up because TSA went through my bags, and they ended up taking my bag, which was a big mistake on my part. And I know better. I had my strings in my bow case.
Yeah.
Took that and a windproof lighter and a bunch of stuff. I'm not saying they took it on purpose, but they did go through my bag. And I think they didn't put them back in there. So when I got out to Nunivak Island to hunt muskox, and you're a solo deal, I couldn't even shoot my bows. I didn't have no bow strings.
Oh, yeah.
So luckily, I had taken a muzzleloader apart, stuck it in my bow case. The evening before I flew up there, so I had my muzzleloader. So I just with my muzzleloader, and I ended up shooting one. I just said I'm not going to shoot a muskox unless it's in bow range, and that's what I did. So the hunt was great. I mean, who gets to solo hunt muskox? You know what I
Right.
mean? So, and I like hunt with a muzzleloader as well. So it worked out. But if I ever draw that again, and I know better, I always carry my bowstrings on my carry-on.
Yeah.
And I didn't that time. Like I said, I'm not saying that they did it on purpose. I think maybe it was a misplacement or whatever. It was weird because that was gone. I have neoprene meat braces I always wear when I'm packing out meat.
Mm-hmm.
I had them wrapped in there in the case, just a little takedown bow case. Everything was stuck in, including the muzzleloader.
Yeah.
And they had went through it. It had that orange thing, and they had inspected it. I think they maybe just set stuff to the side and didn't put it back. I don't know.
That's
You
great.
can call them out. You can say they did it on purpose. You can say it.
But I made it happen, you know what I mean? So that would mean something. If I could ever draw that tag again, that'd be awesome.
Well, that's something else I wanted to touch on with you too, just because I respected it a lot. You made a post this year talking about exercising your right to hunt with a rifle during rifle season and how that's an important part of hunting as well, because hunting with various weapons is just more hunting. It's just a various skill to master, and I think a lot of guys, when I was powerlifting, when I was doing the gear thing, as far as like the supportive equipment, that was the only way to be. And then when I went to the raw side of lifting, which was more or less just belts and knee wraps or belt and knee sleeves, that was the way to do it. So I'm not impervious to this kind of stuff. I'm guilty of it as well. But I think sometimes I have to remind myself too, just like a lot of people might not even think of, just because you do something one way doesn't mean that it's better, worse, whatever. It's just a different way to exercise your ability to do what you're doing. And if you want to rifle hunt and that's legal and it's what you enjoy, who am I to say that that's not the way to do it? What are your thoughts on, I guess, being that you care so much about passing down traditional archery, just hunting in general? Do you think we're on a good path? Do you think we're on a path that can be course corrected? Or do you think we're kind of at the momentum of things are unraveling at a speed that we don't even understand yet?
Well, I mean, overall, I hate to say it, but if you look at state by state, license numbers, license sales have dropped drastically last 10 or 15 years. I don't know what the real answer is to that, but I think that a lot of it comes down to the easy button.
Yeah.
A buddy and I was talking about his neighbor took his kids out for the youth deer hunt, and he had bought them a crossbow, set them up in a box blind, put the crossbow on a tripod, and the kid was playing video games. The kid taps the kid on the shoulder. Here comes a deer into the food plot, and he shoots his deer at like 60-something yards with a crossbow. And then, okay, that was that. And there was no real interaction, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, what did you spark that kid's interest? Probably not.
Right.
He killed a deer. But it wasn't something he had to work at in that. So, I think that maybe we lost a hunter there. I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I think if that's the way, I mean, or I don't know if there's just the parents are getting out of it or the kids are all wanting this technology. I don't know the answer or the reason why. You know? But I do know that we're not selling as many tags here in Michigan. I know that. And the deer population is out of control.
Really?
So that's just one aspect. And I know a lot of Western states and other states are saying the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how we can get more hunter recruitment. I don't know how to do it, honestly.
Well, it's funny because I don't know if it's on the eastern side of things. That tends to be what I hear from my friends at Outfit that tend to just kind of keep a pulse on their area. Is that there aren't as many people hunting on the eastern side, but then you hear some of these podcasts talking about Colorado, and they're saying that places there used to be nobody within 2 or 3 miles, you're getting run over top of with other hunters. So
I agree. I mean, I can attest to that because I've elk hunted in Colorado twice now.
yeah,
And how far you go back in, someone's going to be back there.
yeah,
It just seems to, and I don't personally have one. I don't have a problem with a person using like that Onyx or any of that.
yeah.
Or whatever they use. I think it's a great tool. I personally don't. But there again, you've made it easier. People aren't scared of getting lost. My wife brought this up the other day to me. Just out of random, she goes, I started thinking about this. Have you ever been lost when you've been hunting all over? You just take off and go. Have you ever been lost? And I said, I don't think I've ever been lost because I know how to use the compass.
Yeah.
And I just kind of keep aware of my surroundings. I might have been turned around a little bit, but I figured it out,
Yep.
But honestly, if you have all that technology, you don't worry about getting lost.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I've seen, one, I've been guilty of it too, but I've also seen, we were out in Arizona and we were getting kind of away from where we probably should have been just within respect to the sunset and the distance to be traveled and that kind of thing. And my buddy was starting to panic hard because his battery was down at like 7%, and he's following this thing. And the good thing about Arizona is there's a ton of landmarks. So I knew as long as we were walking towards this mesa, we were going in a general direction where we needed to be going. But he was like he wouldn't comprehend that's the way we're going. But to him, it was like if his Onyx wasn't going to be on, we were just lost, But nevertheless,
years ago with some guys, same deal, and they panicked.
Yeah. Did you ever have to deal with anything like any giardia or anything like that on your hunts when you were out and about?
Yeah, I got this is probably about 20 years ago. I was up in Alaska hunting for a couple weeks and 2 or 3 weeks. Towards the end of the hunt, I was feeling kind of like my stomach was tore up for some reason. I don't know why. And I got home and I was just violently sick.
Yeah.
I couldn't eat anything. So I went to the hospital and they take all these samples. And then the next day, I got a health department calling me. And I'm like, well, what's going on? She goes, well, what restaurant did you eat at? Or where did you buy your meat from? Like, what are you talking about? She goes, well, I forget what it was. And it comes from contaminated meat and blah, 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 blah. I said, no, I've been up in Alaska. I said, moose down the caribou one. And we've been just basically living off the land and whatever. Well, are you sure? Because what you have is this. And
yeah.
So it was bad. So they had to put me on all these antibiotics. So what it was apparently one of the guys that killed a moose, and I don't know if we were watching what we were doing, but it was tainted a little bit with probably feces or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I got the bad end of it. And I've gotten, from drinking bad water a few times.
Yeah.
And I'm bad at it in Alaska. A lot of times I'm like, oh, it's coming out of the mountains. I'm just going to drink it. And I've never had any issues with like moose hunting and bear hunting in Ontario.
Yeah.
I can't do that anymore because there's just too many beavers and stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You got to really
I spent a couple nights.
Anything, but there it is.
I spent a couple nights in Tijuana and ended up with the same thing. So you're not safe anywhere.
You guys are a little different.
Yeah, that's probably a lot different. But nevertheless, all of it's a good time. But man, I guess that's probably a good place to start winding this down. Just to touch on the Lost Bow campaign again, make sure that
on this drawing is that I want to clarify one thing too, is because the board members of Michigan Traditional Bow Hunters themselves support this so much.
Yep.
And donate as well. Are the board members going to be eligible for the drawings?
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is completely randomized. It's put into an automated system, and we'll have everybody entered. I mean, Ross and I are the only two individuals alive excluded from this. So anybody else, yourself included, can win this. And as far as the hunt and the knife and whatnot, I mean, obviously you don't need another bow, but as far as the hunt goes and the knife go, anybody anywhere that wants to support putting another bow in another human being's hand is eligible to win this. You know, Ross and I being the only exclusions.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, because the Lost Bow campaign is like its own separate entity from Michigan Traditional Bow Hunters. We're it was founded through us, but that's all kept separately.
Yeah, I just look at you as the guy that introduced us to the opportunity. That's the way that I view this. Is like, without you, I wouldn't have known the Lost Bow campaign existed. So therefore, you're just the liaison to make it happen. But yeah, you can enter. Any of the board members can enter. Friends, family,
supported, throughout the year 100%. As well. And so let's. And here's one other thing, and I guess we could have talked about this beforehand, but I put in. I'm just some random guy, and I decide, well, here's $50 I'll put towards the Lost Bow. Mm-hmm. And then next week, I want to say, I'm going to throw another 50 at it.
Sure.
Or we can enter that person twice.
Let's just say every $50 increment is a prize, or is a chance.
Well, or every that. I guess that's why I want to clarify, because if I give 200 today, or do I just say, well, I'm going to give 200, I want to be entered 4 times.
Yeah.
Or is it every separate transaction? Or
every separate transaction over 50?
Nah, I just think in increments of 50, because that way it streamlines it for you guys. Does that work? Like if a guy says $300 today, he gets 6 entries because it's $50 increments to 6 versus 6.
I'm gonna say, I'm honestly, Jim, I'd say whatever's easier to keep track of and do it on your guys' end. If it works by transaction, and somebody does one for 50,
I think by transaction would be easier to keep track of.
Then that works. Okay. That works great.
However, that works for us too. So, however you want it run, we'll just clarify via text just so we can write it out in plain print so everybody can follow it along. But I think that works. Transactional $50 is an entry, and you have unlimited ability to enter over and over and over if you want. If you want to spend $500, it's 10 entries.
And then like I say, we'll just keep track of that. Our treasurer and our merchandise guy, they both have monitor that.
Yep.
And then we'll go forward with it. But I just wanted to
great question.
That. And so
that's perfect. I'm glad you did.
It's its own entity. It's not Michigan Traditional Bow Hunters per se.
I'm glad you did, because I got in a situation, and it was mild, but it was just had to clarify. A friend of mine actually won a bow that I was giving away a few years ago, a compound, and there was a few people, and it was a $5 entry. Like, it wasn't like, I was getting rich off the thing, and nobody, it was just trying to get a bow given to somebody. And it just happened to go to a guy that lives an hour from here. I knew him vaguely, but I didn't know him. But there was some talk and some suspicion about that. Just to be clear, that's why we're doing all of this now. Like I said, there's so much stuff I see on the internet that I question and wonder about and whatnot. Right. From the front end, $50 gets you 1 entry. Every increment of $50 gets you another entry. Anybody alive, save myself and Ross, can win this. So 7.9 whatever billion people can do this, because the matter of fact is, you guys as board members, and I know this from being involved, being around traditional archery for the time that I have, the people that are doing it are paying it forward, and the people that are board members have probably lost more than they've gained as far as financially and time wise in trying to keep this thing alive. But it really is an important thing, because for me, I not to make this about me again, but just to speak on the difference that I feel like that martial art aspect of traditional archery versus the compound, where I said it was a technical skill that you can master, not to a Levi Morgan level master, but you can master shooting to 40 or 50 yards relatively quickly. I feel like if I don't shoot the traditional bow for 3 days, I kind of have to refresh myself again. And that's a similar feeling to jiu-jitsu. That's a similar feeling that I've had to taekwondo. Things that I've done in the past that were martial arts in name transfer very, very well to the traditional bow. So I just want to pass what little bit of ability I have to bring awareness to this with Ross and Peace, Love, and Meat to you guys, the Lost Bow campaign. Please follow the Michigan Traditional Bow Hunters. Get involved if you're shooting a traditional bow. If you're shooting a compound, there's no problem in buying a cheap Samick Sage or Galaxy Sage or whatever they are for a couple $100 and trying it out. I'll tell you two things I know of. Every time I fix heart in hunting camp, people finish the bowl. And then every time a person that's shot compound for years tries a recurve, they enjoy it. You know what I mean? I'm not telling you to go out and have to hunt with it. I'm not saying change your mindset on hunting, but I think traditional bows and traditional archery are very, very friendly to anybody that wants to pick them up and try it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We've always even when I took over as president of Michigan Traditional Bowhunters, I always even talked about that, even on other podcasts. By no means are we anti-compound bow or anything.
Yeah.
Most of my friends hunt with compounds. I don't care. As long as you're a good person and have good ethics in your normal life and hunting, that's all that life's about, really. It's not that complicated.
For sure.
So,
well, man, this was a great one. I had a great time. Sorry, Ross, I talked so damn much, but appreciate you being here, man. Thanks for listening. But Jim, truly, thank you, and just thank you for being kind of a point to point my compass towards as far as how to hunt, how to treat people, and how to do things right. I mean, you've just been really cool to me, and I appreciate that very much. I think we've got a lot of cool stuff ahead of us.
Yeah, I agree. It's my pleasure, and I appreciate everything you guys have done too.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep. Well, we'll do as much as we can. Thanks for your time, brother.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Rob.